really can't stay.
Baby, it's cold outside.
I've got to go away.
Baby, it's cold outside.
I compiled a list of all the Christmas classics that they tried to cancel. I mean, sure, sometimes movies age like a fine wine, but sometimes they age like Ebenezer Scrooge. And some people have even tried to cancel some of our favorite holiday tunes. Should Baby It's Cold Outside really be canceled? Is Charlie Brown going down? Who tried to melt Frosty forever? We're gonna hear from you. Do you think the critics of these Christmas classics are right or wrong? Are they naughty or nice? Let's go, ho ho. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Let's begin with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Now, if there's one holiday film that felt like a rite of passage growing up, it's Rudolph's story.
We'll call him Rudolph.
Rudolph is a lovely name.
We all know the song by heart, and for so many of us, watching Rudolph get bullied for his red nose and eventually saving Christmas was both inspiring and so satisfying. It felt like it was telling us that being different, it wasn't a bad thing, you know? Rudolph's shiny red nose, which made him an outcast, it was actually his greatest gift. And when he flew through the night to guide Santa's sleigh, it was like this universal message for hope for anyone who ever felt a bit different, who got bullied for that. But in recent years, I don't know if you've seen this, but some people are seeing Rudolph in a new light. And no, it's not the age-old debate about whether claymation or stop motion is adorable or a visual nightmare. Personally, I am in that first group. But no, I mean something way darker. For one thing, some people don't want any North Pole residents getting help from Rudolph because they bullied our favorite reindeer, and all that bullying shouldn't be in the movie to begin with. Modern audiences slam the bigotry and the coach pressuring the other reindeer to not play with him.
From now on, gang, we won't let Rudolph join in any reindeer games, right?
I mean, yeah, I understand hating to see anyone get bullied, but hey, I do think we need some conflict. But that's not all either, it does get deeper. Critics argue the movie's message says that Rudolph's empowering uniqueness was only valuable once it became useful to others, especially to Santa. There's talk about how he was initially rejected and shamed, with everyone from his parents to his friends failing to accept him.
You should be ashamed of yourself. What a pity. He had a nice takeoff, too.
But oh, now you have to stop bullying him because he's useful. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Because I don't think many of us saw it that way back then. To us, it was a simple story about overcoming adversity, and how everyone does have something special to offer. Kid viewers just came away with that message, that you should be proud of all your quirks. And that's a very important time to learn that lesson, when schoolyard bullies could be worse than Krampus. Do you remember cheering him on as he proved everyone wrong? For us, Rudolph's story was a hopeful reminder that sometimes the things that make us different are exactly what makes us shine. What do you think? Do you think this special should still be played, or is the bullying harmful for kids? Do you watch the Rudolph Claymation special every year if you can find it on? Get down in the comments and tell us all your thoughts on Rudolph. It's a Wonderful Life. This one gets me every single time I watch it. You have George Bailey standing on that bridge, feeling like his life doesn't matter, and then realizing just how much he has impacted everyone around him. It is such a powerful message. So many of us could relate to George's struggles, dreams put on hold, responsibilities piling up, and that occasional feeling of wondering if we did make any kind of difference at all. It's the pinnacle experience of adulthood, that bittersweet milestone when magic just goes dark. This movie became a Christmas classic because it reminded us of the true riches in life, family, friends, and community. And I think back then, we really needed that reminder. Life can be tough, but seeing George's life through Clarence's eyes, it left us feeling grateful and more connected to those around us. But nowadays, some folks are pointing out the darker side of George's story. Like the idea that he has to lose everything before realizing his worth. Like horrible stuff in life is required just to be happy. There's also discussions about mental health and how the movie portrays it. Modern viewers sometimes feel that it's a bit too much of a fix-it-all moment when George's friends come to his aid. Pretty much that it gives the wrong idea that one single thing can completely and forever fix something as complicated and messy as mental health. which of course is not the case in real life, so modern viewers think this gives people the wrong idea. But for so many of us, it was uplifting and grounding. And I'll tell you what, when those church bells ring and Clarence gets his wings, it's hard not to feel that rush of nostalgia. And while it's definitely good to know that life isn't so straightforward, sometimes it's just nice to have an escape where everything does fall into place after we feel our lowest. Like there's definitely clear skies after the blizzard. So what do you think? Did George's journey remind you of your own? Because too many have been exactly where he was, standing on that bridge, wondering if you mattered. And yeah, I think it's still a powerful movie that makes us pause and think about all the lives we've touched, hopefully. Baby, It's Cold Outside. The infamous Baby, It's Cold Outside. Remember how romantic the song used to feel? There was a certain magic to hearing it play during holiday parties, with its catchy back and forth and playful banter. A really popular one for couples to duet. A little playful tug of war between two people who clearly like each other. But norms at the time meant they couldn't be together without a scandal. In many of the old movies it appeared in, it added a touch of warmth and a hint of Christmas romance. For years it was part of the holiday soundtrack, and it didn't feel like Christmas without it. But I'm sure you've heard, recent years have brought a lot of people criticizing the song to light for implying something oh so much darker. They argue that the lyrics feel really pushy, with the man repeatedly asking the woman to stay, despite her hesitation.
Baby, it's bad out there.
Say, what's in this
No
drink?
cabs to be had out there.
Some listeners today feel it doesn't align with modern ideas about consent. And hey, I get it. Times have changed and we do see things differently now. Back in December of 2018, a radio station in Cleveland, Ohio, they stopped airing Baby, It's Cold Outside, for those reasons I just discussed. But this ended up drawing a ton of attention to the duet, and it sparked a long internet debate along the way, with people slamming the lyrics and defending them. In fact, the station stopped playing the song after a bunch of listeners complained about the lyrics being pretty predatory. And this wasn't an isolated incident either. WDOK host Glenn Anderson made a statement on the station's website. It read, and I quote, "I do realize that when the song was written in 1944, it was a different time. But now, while reading it, it seems very manipulative and wrong. But it's still being used. I mean, just think about Elf, the great Will Ferrell Christmas movie. You have Jovi and Buddy belting it out in the bathroom. It's funny to think about how something so familiar can come to be seen so differently with time. But hey, that's what time does. It reshapes things. So what do you think? Is Baby, It's Cold Outside appropriate today, or should we toss it into the fire? A Charlie Brown Christmas. Now this one is still beloved by millions, and I think it's safe to say that it's part of many of our holiday traditions.
I almost wish there weren't a holiday season.
I remember watching it with my family, feeling that simple joy as Charlie Brown, in his own quirky way, discovered the true meaning of Christmas. The story is really heartfelt, and that scraggly little tree of his, well, I bet more than a few of us had our own Charlie Brown Christmas trees over the years. I'm not afraid to admit that when I was a little kid, my mom gave me a red ornament one Christmas, and every winter I'd go outside and look for a bare little tree, and put the ornament on it, and I'd recite, "It's not bad at all, really. Maybe it just needs a little love." Of course my siblings and I always had to recreate the football kick with each other, but that's beside the point. For us, it was like a call to remember what's truly important, kindness and connection. But some critics have looked back and pointed out moments they find problematic, like the way Charlie Brown is treated by his friends, especially Lucy. They argue that the constant put-downs are too harsh for young kids to see. Some folks feel that this treatment overshadows the story's sweetness, but for us, I think, we saw Charlie as a kid figuring things out and coming out of an emotional lull, basically going on a journey to find Christmas, and isn't that what we all want to do all day every day in December? No matter how many times he got knocked down, he kept going, and by the end, he found his peace. Watching Charlie Brown taught us that life isn't perfect, and sometimes you've just got to laugh at your struggles and press on. Also, at the time there was a lot of chatter about the movie's heavy religious content. Even the crew behind it worried that the nativity scene was too lengthy, and some outside critics were more than a little iffy about Charlie Brown's whole arc culminating in that scene. While anything faith-related often gets some eyebrows raised, no matter the religion, another huge part of this particular complaint was because of precedent. If it's animation, it must be purely entertainment, some say. We didn't really have a ton of cartoony stuff that was also quite deep and explored mature topics. So on top of giving us some true holiday icons like Linus at his piano and the gang singing Christmas carols, Charlie Brown Christmas also broke some really huge ground, and that's why he's the Charlie Brownest. And I know many of you watch this one every single year, so if you do, make sure to tell us. Home Alone. Oh boy, Home Alone. Now I don't know about you, but the idea of a kid having free reign over his house while outsmarting a couple of bumbling burglars with some cool booby traps, yeah, that's so freaking awesome. Seriously, it's just pure gold to kids. And I think it's hard to find someone who didn't wish for just a little slice of Kevin McAllister's adventure, the freedom, the tricks, and most of all, that grocery receipt. Did you see those prices? I think the cost of his entire shopping that day would buy me like half a toothbrush. And of course, we loved the message of family togetherness that wrapped everything up in the end. There's something timeless about that movie, how it combines the thrill of independence with the importance of family, all tied up in a beautiful bow thanks to John Williams and his incredible, sweeping, tender score. Ah, John, you did it again. You always do it again. But in recent years, yes, even Home Alone has been called out by some who feel it's too violent for a family movie. Shut up! That the pranks Kevin pulls on the burglars, stepping on nails, getting hit in the face with full paint cans, they might seem a bit cartoonish at the time, but some viewers today think they take it a bit too far. They say that showing the wet bandits walking off the level of violence that they walk into, it might desensitize viewers, especially the youngins. Pretty much, they worry that it sets an unrealistic expectation of what's safe for kids to do and just how crippling violent stuff can be. But for so many of us, it was just pure slapstick fun. A little bit like an old school cartoon, you know, with real people. I mean, didn't we all try to booby trap our own rooms at least once? Miracle on 34th Street. Here's one that brings a smile to my face just thinking about it. Miracle on 34th Street. Remember when we watched as Kris Kringle took on the jaded adults of New York City, bringing magic and belief back to a busy modern world, or modern then. There was something so sweet and warm about this movie. The idea that maybe, just maybe, a little holiday magic could be real. And when the courtroom scene finally comes and little Susan realizes Kris just might be Santa, it's impossible not to feel that holiday glow. But even Miracle on 34th Street hasn't completely dodged criticism.
Oh, don't worry about me. I've got the best lawyer in the world.
Some folks have pointed out that for all its charm, the movie suggests that those who don't believe in Santa or holiday magic are somehow out of touch or lacking. Of course, this feels like a slap in the face to people not in on the Christmas magic for whatever reason. And there's no need to make anyone feel like an outsider during this magical time of year for the rest of us. But I personally always just got swept up in exactly that. The magic, feeling warm and fuzzy with holiday cheer, and nowadays nostalgia for those simpler days. A few also take issue with the commercialism surrounding Santa and the entire Macy's endorsement storyline. But for most of us, this was a story of hope and believing in the extraordinary. We weren't thinking of the commercialism at all, just that special feeling that came from seeing something beautiful in the ordinary. The Polar Express. The Polar Express is a more recent classic, but it's also come under scrutiny over the years. The movie had such an enchanting quality to it, even if the animation could be hit or miss depending on what you're into. A mysterious train pulling up outside a young boy's house on Christmas Eve, whisking him off to the North Pole to meet Santa. The journey, the songs, and that bit of magic in each character made it feel like a storybook coming to life. The message about believing, even when you can't see, it touched a lot of our hearts and captured a childlike wonder we all remember feeling at Christmas time. But it's time to return to the station. Remember what I said about the animation being hit or miss? Well, I gotta admit that some viewers today have raised concerns about the movie's uncanny valley effect. The character's semi-realistic animation style, it sometimes makes them look, a little eerie. They kinda have dead eyes. There's not much happening behind them. And yeah, it kinda distracts from the story for some modern audiences. There's also been criticism over the rigid views on believing presented in the film. Some feel that it's a bit too harsh to suggest that those who don't believe in magic are somehow missing out on life. But for so many of us, it was a tale about innocence, wonder, and letting ourselves get swept up in the spirit of the season. We saw it as a reminder that a little mystery and imagination, it makes life richer, doesn't it? What about you? Do you like the Polar Express? Or are all the Tom Hankses kinda creepy? Frosty the Snowman. Frosty's story has this warm, nostalgic feeling of pure joy and friendship. And it's a short, sweet tale that we could watch over and over. When Frosty melts at the end, only to come back to life again, it was always a hopeful message for us. A reminder of the circle of life and the magic of Christmas. That maybe, just maybe, the wonder of childhood innocence would last us one more year, or never go away. When adulthood was such an exciting but terrifying concept. And hey kids, you're not wrong, you're not wrong. But recently, some have argued that Frosty's melting could be a bit too sad, or even traumatic for kids. I'll admit it, I did react pretty dramatically the first time I watched it, but my parents would always talk about the way my face lit up when I saw Frosty again and actually jumped up around cheering. That takes a pretty darn powerful story to get that range of emotions, I think. Even nowadays, I still get a little teary-eyed when I see the movie again, but more out of fondness and nostalgia, missing those simpler times laying on the floor watching this with my parents. There's also the concern about the portrayal of the bad guy magician, Professor Hinkle, with some saying he's a one-dimensional villain. But hey, it's a cartoon. And for those of us who grew up watching Frosty, it was just a simple story with a dash of magic. We didn't overthink it. It was about the joys and losses of friendship, and the hope that Frosty would always come back to play another day. Santa Claus is coming to town. Next up, Santa Claus is coming to town, another one of those classic stop-motion holiday specials. This one explaining the origins of Santa Claus. It had everything, young Kris Kringle, the Winter Warlock, and even a bit of romance.
Golly.
It really was kind of fascinating as a kid to learn the why behind Santa's traditions, even if it was just a story. And watching Kris change the hearts of the grouchy townsfolk, one toy at a time, it was a really hopeful message about kindness and generosity, and about how awesome Christmas is. But on the other hand, the movie has gotten its share of complaints for its portrayal of authority figures, with people saying the story makes it out like all rules and restrictions are bad. Some other people have slammed the old-fashioned gender roles, especially with Mrs. Claus as a sweet, supportive character without much personality.
I made this for your trip.
A real Kringle suit.
Just a quintessential, maybe stereotypical housewife kind of role. But for me, and so many of us, it was just an entertaining holiday origin story. Full of charm, warmth, more or less harmless overall. We didn't look too deeply into the characters' roles, we were just happy to see Santa's story unfold from the beginning. So where does this one rank in Bass? Do you watch it every single Christmas, or is it not in your rotation? How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Who could forget the iconic image of the Grinch, his green fur standing out against the snowy backdrop? That mischievous smile as he hatches his plan to steal Christmas from the Who's. The oh-so-classic animated version of How the Grinch Stole Christmas, narrated by Boris Karloff. It holds a special place in so many of our hearts. To the point that when you say Christmas, a lot of people think about this short movie. And how quickly do we call someone a Grinch when they're grumpy in the holiday season? Yeah, it's in the zeitgeist, alright. It's a tale filled with timeless lessons about kindness, the holiday spirit, and the idea that Christmas is more than just gifts. Remember how the Grinch's heart grows 3 sizes when he finally understands the true meaning of Christmas? That moment encapsulates everything we've learned about generosity and love. But in recent years, the Grinch and its creator Dr. Seuss has come under some scrutiny. Some critics have pointed out that the Grinch's transformation feels a bit too simplistic. After all, it took him stealing Christmas to realize that the holiday spirit exists beyond material things. There's a sense that the movie glosses over his feelings of isolation and anger, almost as if it simplifies the complexities of redemption. Or that the Who's were the bad guys for not reaching out to this lonely, upset guy. But many of us remember the warmth and joy the story brought, teaching us that change is possible no matter how grumpy or distant someone may seem. It's a reminder that everyone deserves a second chance, which is a beautiful message all the time, especially during the holiday season. But of course, the conversation doesn't stop there. Dr. Seuss himself has faced criticism for some of the imagery and themes present in his earlier works. Some argue that certain characters and portrayals can be interpreted as racially insensitive, and they've called for a reevaluation of his legacy. This brings us to a broader discussion about the importance of context when looking back at our childhood favorites. While Seuss's stories are cherished and have shaped countless imaginations, it's good to be aware of changes in societal values and how our understanding of art has changed. For many of us, the joy of How the Grinch Stole Christmas lies in its message of love overcoming hatred, acceptance overshadowing doubt and anxiety. It taught us that no matter how distant we feel, connection is always possible, especially during the holidays. The Grinch's journey from a bitter outsider to a beloved member of the community resonates deeply, reminding us of the transformative power of kindness. So, while we reflect on the Grinch and its place in our holiday traditions, we can also recognize the complexity of its legacy. It's a classic that sparks joy and nostalgia, but it's also a reminder that art and literature are not static. They evolve with our understanding and conversations. And isn't that part of what makes this season so special? The ability to come together to celebrate our shared stories, while also being open to growth and understanding in our perspectives. This balance of nostalgia and reflection is what allows us to keep the spirit of the holidays alive, embracing both the magic of our childhood favorites and the lessons they offer us today. Thanks to these and so many more movies and songs, Christmas has a ton of symbols. Charlie Brown's sad, beautiful little tree, the Grinch's wicked grin, the red glow of a reindeer's nose in the night. Each of these movies in its own way became a part of our lives and a part of our holiday traditions. They're still watched, discussed, and loved by millions, even if some people see them through a different lens today. So yeah, maybe they're not flawless, but they do remind us of a time when Christmas was simpler and family came together to watch something that made us all feel warm inside. So the next time you're scrolling through holiday movies, there's hundreds now. Maybe just give one of these classics another look and let yourself slip back to those familiar places they once took us. So, now we need to hear from you. What holiday film or special that I mentioned is your favorite? Which one do you have to watch every single Christmas? Which do you watch on Christmas Eve? And do you see any of them in a different light today rather than when you were a kid? Get down in the comment section and tell us anything about something we mentioned or something we forgot. We love reading your memories because, after all, we're nothing without you. If you enjoyed our holiday video, please give it a thumbs up, it really helps. And make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't get left behind and you never miss a memory. But most importantly, from all of us here at Do You Remember, we want to thank you so much for watching, and Merry Christmas, you filthy animal.